Good morning, Abundant Life Church. This is Pastor Chris. Today we're going to wrap up our study on John chapter 12, verses 12 through 19. Jesus rides into town on Palm Sunday. The people hail him as a king, but really not the kind of king they're expecting. They're expecting someone to drive out the Romans. No, 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 no. Jesus is actually going to be defeated. He's going to be arrested. He's going to be put to death. But then the real victory comes. He's going to rise from the dead. That's not what people were expecting. Jesus didn't live up to their expectations. He surpassed them. God doesn't always live up to the expectations that we have. But what's really going on in those times when we're, kind of wondering, God, why didn't you do it the way we asked? You see, again, they wanted a king who would drive out the Romans. Did Jesus live up to their expectations? He did not. Oh, so Jesus is a disappointment, right? Was Jesus a failure or a success as a king? Could it be that the expectations the people had were too small? What John realized as he looked back on this event years later, and he looked back in hindsight, was that everything that they expected him to be was too small. They wanted someone who'd conquer Rome, make them a great kingdom. But God sent them someone who was going to conquer sin and death. Which one is better? I'm sure you probably remember this name. It's one of the greatest historic names of all time. Odavasser. And you're thinking, who's Odavasser? I'll be honest with you, the only reason I remember the name Odavasser from when I took church history in college was I thought that'd be a cool name to name a dog. If you got a pet dog, Odavasser, that's a good. My wife has never allowed me to name one of the dogs that, but Odavasser is a good name. Who was Odavasser? He was the Germanic general who in 476 marked what many historians consider the final fall of the Roman Empire. Odavasser. Odavasser put the last nail in the coffin of the Roman Empire. If Jesus had done what people wanted, Jesus today would have had a chance to be just as well known as Odavasser. I think it's a pretty good thing that Jesus didn't settle for the agenda that people had. Don't be disappointed when God doesn't live up to our expectations because God is on a whole other level. We think we know exactly what we need. And we tell God, this is what I need. We give him detail. We pray and we say, God, I need it by this date. This is my exact specifications. And we get confused because we think God is the same thing as Amazon. Things don't always turn out the way we were hoping. But could it be that just maybe God has bigger plans? So you know what we need to do? We need to start seeing the bigger plans that God has. Otherwise, our life can get really confusing. And confusion about this is really just a failure to understand that God's reality is greater than our expectations. Let me say that again. God's reality is so far better than our expectations. It means we need to start seeing the bigger plan, the bigger agenda that God has. Yeah, sometimes we get disappointed in God. God, I really wanted that promotion at work. You didn't get it. God, I really wanted this to work out. You didn't get it. God, I prayed for healing for this person and they weren't healed. It's hard to face a crippling illness. It's hard to face the loss of a loved one. If I sound flippant about this, I'm not. Because a lot of times the things we pray for are not trivial things. They're huge, life-altering, painful things. But those all have one thing in common. None of those are about eternity. God's plans are about eternity. Our plans are usually for the right here and now. Yeah, sometimes things don't work out. I always tell people this, think about the problems, the worries that you had 5 years ago. Do you still have those? No, no. The problems and worries that you have now, are you going to be facing those in 5 years? No. You'll be onto a whole new set of problems and worries by then. God looks at the big picture, though. God looks at eternity. You know what? I like God's plans better. Sure, it's fun when we get our prayers answered the way we like, but can we keep going when we don't? I think we can because God has a bigger agenda in mind. I'm going to close with a great movie, Toy Story. I love Toy Story because it came out when my kids were little. And kids, when they watch a video, they want to watch that same video 87 times in a row. And your mind starts to reel. They're watching that cartoon again. But Toy Story was one I thought I could actually sit down and watch this with them on more than one occasion. I like that movie. And I love the scene at the end. If you've never seen it, go watch Toy Story because there's this great scene at the end. I won't get into all the how this happened, but Woody and Buzz Lightyear are strapped to a rocket. It's they're flying through the air now. Buzz has got his wings out, and they're kind of gliding, trying to come in for a landing. They're chasing Andy. Andy's mom and the sister and he are all moving, and so there's a moving van, and they're in the car in front of that, and they're going to try and land in the moving van and be reunited with all the other toys, but Buzz overshoots it. And Woody says, Buzz, you missed the truck. And Buzz says, we're not aiming for the truck. And they end up landing in the minivan right next to Andy. Now, I always am struck by that. We're not aiming for the truck. We're not aiming for the truck. What Woody wanted is just get us in the truck, get us in there with all the luggage, all the furniture, the other toys. Just get us in the truck. No, I'm going for the van. I'm going for where Andy is. We're not aiming for the truck. Folks, I think we get confused with God because we don't realize God is not aiming for the truck. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.